good evening, and welcome to Fox.
All right, and good evening. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you had a great Thursday. Welcome back to Joe Cipriano's 1990s Be Kind and Rewind VHS Playback Party. And before we jump into tonight's show, we're going to take a quick look back at last week. Let's first go to our folks that are stopping by and saying hello. And guys, let me know if everything is good or if there are any problems. I looked over right before I started, and the microphone wasn't making its funny little green jumping up and down thing. So, which means the microphone might have been off. But apparently we are okay, and we are live and happy to be here. So last week we told the story of how my voice ended up coming out of Chef Morimoto's mouth on Iron Chef America, one of the most fun gigs that I had. Really, really cool. And, you know, at the time, I was doing It's an All-New Simpsons on Fox, you know, and then all of a sudden I've got this very mellow kind of performance for Morimoto, and talking about bib and bop and all sorts of things like that. If you missed it, it's on my YouTube channel, which is at Joe Cip, Joecip. It's also on Apple Podcasts and most major podcast platforms. You can watch it in video in those locations. I think probably one of the best places is YouTube or Apple Podcasts for the video side. Now, tonight, two true stories about moments that changed just about everything. One happened at 4 o'clock in the morning on the 11th floor of a Los Angeles radio station when the earth started moving. And the other is about 60 seconds of television that saved a company and, in a way, changed the world. But before we jump into it, I have another image campaign for Fox that I want to share with you. We've looked at a few of them. I think I had one from 89. I had one from 91. This is a different one that my friend Ron Scalera, who was at the time one of the heads of on-air marketing at the Fox network. He's the reason why I ended up over at CBS eventually, when he was hired away by CBS when they decided they wanted to go young. And they brought Ron in to change all of the marketing. So let's take a look at this campaign. I believe it's from 1990. It's a cool one. And then we'll be back right after that and kick off the show.
Okay, who's the bonehead who broke the film?
Ta-da! Let's take a journey to the distant past in the Bart Simpson time machine.
What?
Back when hideous dinosaurs roamed the earth, and out of the primordial sludge oozed Homer sapien.
Bart?
Notice the large stomach.
Bart?
Notice the extremely small cranium.
Bart!
Uh-oh, roll it, dude!
Change that can be arranged. Tell them now.
It's on Fox.
No matter what the mood, it's a whole new attitude. Tell them now.
It's on Fox.
Fox is gonna wake you up, and it's gonna make you happy. Fox is gonna shake you up, and it's gonna make you see. Believe you me. No doubt about it. No one else does what we do. It's on Fox. Yeah, jump up and shout it. Drop what you're doing. It's on Fox for you.
I'm on Fox.
Bart, get your butt over here right now! Go!
If you like it real, real as it can feel. Tell them now.
It's on Fox.
If you like a look that ain't strictly by the book.
It's on Fox.
Okay, folks, here comes the big finish.
It's on Fox with you.
I'm out of here.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, so much energy. It was so great. So for those of you who just came in, welcome everybody to Joe Cipriano's 1990s Be Kind and Rewind VHS playback party, streaming live everywhere. Use social. I'm Joe Cipriano. Happy to be here with you. Throughout the decade of the 1990s, I was the comedy promo voice of the Fox network. So if you listened or watched television in the 1990s, you probably heard my voice, and I'm very happy that you did. Now, I got to pull one up here. It's your old friend, Phil. This is a buddy of mine who worked at Fox with me back in the early days. And Phil, you may have even been there when we did that campaign. But Phil Oler was a room producer at Fox, and then a writer-producer, went on to create these things. And then he became a huge muckety-muck at ad agencies and other places like that. You can look him up, Phil Oler, O-H-L-E-R. And that's what's great to see him. I'm good, Joe. Love seeing you on all my socials. Thank you. Greetings and salutations, folks from all over the world. Now I can chat. Everybody is having a good time. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, tonight we have two very different stories. The first, as I kind of hinted at, takes us back to October of 1987. This is something that I posted earlier this week that, wow, got a lot of attention. And so I thought, well, why not do a little segment on it today? So in 1987, October of that year, we're going to take you back to a radio station and a moment that is now, 40 years later. And the second thing we're going to talk about today takes us to 1997. So we got a 10-year span there, to a company that was on the brink of collapse, and the 60 seconds of television that changed everything. So let's start with the earthquake. All right. And the year was 1987. So if we're starting with an earthquake, we should get ready to rumble.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world on HBO pay-per-view. Ladies and gentlemen, from Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, let's get ready to rumble!
Yes, classic. And we were rumbling as we go back to October of 1987. Now, 3 days earlier, on October 1st, the Whittier Narrows earthquake had hit Los Angeles, magnitude of 5.9, the strongest quake to hit LA in nearly 2 decades. And if you were watching TV that morning, it was somewhere around 7 o'clock, this is what it looked like.
Hubbing earned $27,000 last year in a country where...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to interrupt the Today program right now. A fairly heavy earthquake just moved through the Southern California area. I'm Ken Shocknick, Channel 4 News in Burbank. Forgive me if I'm out of breath, but I just ran down from our newsroom where we saw lights shaking, lights going out, electricity lost. We have lost our telephones. The earthquake happened at about 7:42 this morning. It went on for about, I would guess at this point, 15 or 20 seconds. And since then, we have lost our telephone communication. We have a lot of lights here in the studio that are still shaking and swinging at this point. We don't have a lot of information. We know that the earthquake happened at 7:42 this morning. It lasted 15, 25 seconds. We don't have an epicenter yet. This is information that will come later on from the... And here's another aftershock or another earthquake happening right now. I'm not sure which. I'm going to get under this desk. I apologize for the theatrics. Okay. This is live. This is what's happening right now. And a word to the folks in the control room, if you're going to swear, we can hear it on the air, so we'll try to keep a sense of decorum. Christina, do you have any copy, any wire copy that's coming right now?
Nothing. Yet. We're
Nothing is coming in right now. One of our associates is saying that we are making calls, so that means that some telephone contact has been reestablished. Again, an earthquake of unknown magnitude. We're going to stay on the air as we try to get additional information. If you are in an area where there has been an earthquake, where you have felt it, and judging by the magnitude of what we have felt, we're assuming that much of Southern California knows what's going on at this point. We would ask that you stay calm. If you feel more shocks, get under something nearby. Don't run around. Get under something heavy. Get into a door frame. Get into a doorway. Do what you can.
Well, somebody said, I wonder how many people actually watch that. Well, believe it or not, I was watching that along with my wife. And let's see, my little baby daughter, who was 3 years old, and my son, who was maybe just a couple of months old. So, power was not out throughout the city. I think Burbank got hit pretty hard. We felt it really strong in the Palisades, and it was felt, widespread, all over the place. So there were a lot of people that saw that live, including me. So did much of Los Angeles. Kent Shocknick would never be able to live this down. That whole thing with ducking under the desk, while it was a smart thing to do, if you have hundreds of lights above you in scaffolding, and those lights are like 80 pounds each hanging above your head. But the problem was for us viewers, we didn't see any of that, right? We're just seeing a guy at a desk and he's all out of breath. And when that kind of aftershock hits, he's like really stunned. And then, he ducks down. So it was kind of a bad look for old Kent Shocknick. And there were many jokes that were made. And the best being the nickname, which was Kent Aftershocknick. If you haven't heard that, it was making the rounds in Los Angeles and making poor Kent very sad. But I am sure you're all familiar with The Simpsons TV anchor, Kent Brockman. Let's see, Kent Shocknick, Kent Brockman.
Hordes of panicky people seem to be evacuating the town for some unknown reason. Professor, without knowing precisely what the danger is, would you say it's time for our viewers to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside?
Yes, I would, Ken.
The Simpsons creators say that Brockman isn't directly based on one single person, but serves as a composite parody of several prominent Los Angeles news anchors, in particular, Jerry Dunphy, who had that same kind of Kent Brockman delivery. And let's see if I can find that for you right here. Yes, let's take a look at this. And you may play. Well, it's not playing. All right. Well, that right there is Jerry Dunphy and the Eyewitness News team. I'm not sure why it's not playing. It should be playing, but of course it's not. So let me pull that down for now. Jerry used to start the news. So let me tell you what was in the clip. He used to start the news every night with, from the desert to the sea to all of Southern California, a good evening. Now, back then, my wife, for many years, throughout the 80s into the 90s, worked at Channel 7, KABC. She was a news producer and news writer, and she's a great writer and would often get the first story of the night. They would give that top story to one of the top writers, and she would oftentimes get that story. And she learned early on that you had to write on the script, from the desert to the sea to all of Southern California, good evening, every time you wrote the lead story. And if you didn't, well, he might not do it. Okay. We all know that, anchors are pretty locked in, to the teleprompter. So Ann would work the 6 and 11 p.m. news. I was working at a radio station in Hollywood called K-Hits 97 at the time. I was doing 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And there were a couple of times that I would get off the air at 9 p.m. I would have to go into the production room and do what was called commercial production, which meant you would have to cart up. And we talked about carts last week and the week before with Michael Damian when he was my guest. You would cart up commercials that came in. And then if it had a tag on it, sale ends July 10th. You would record that and put it on the back of the spot, and they would all go on the cart. It would go into the studio. It would have a number, and boom. That's how the radio station ran. So after I did my production work, I'd head over to the KABC studios. I was down on Wilshire and Wilton, like right around there. And they were over on Prospect near Hollywood Boulevard. And one night, I got there. Jerry Dunphy is holed up in his dressing room, and he refused to come out because the news director was forbidding him to say his From the Desert to the Sea to All of Southern California intro. And Jerry was not having any of that. So he refused to go on the air until the news director would take back the edict. And it got to a couple of minutes before airtime. His co-anchor at the time was Tawny Little. Look her up, Tawni, Tawny Little. And Tawny was instructed to do the intro of the show alone, which was, wow, not done in 1987. Jerry Dunphy was the guy. He was why, well, many people thought, KABC Channel 7 was number one. It got down to 60 seconds, and Jerry was not going to go on the air. And the program director, the news director said, all right, 60 seconds. Jerry runs out of his dressing room, down to the set, sits in his chair, looks into the camera as he got his cue to go, and he said, from the desert to the sea to all of Southern California. Wow. Now, the other LA anchor, similar to Kent Brockman on The Simpsons, is KTLA Channel 5's legendary anchorman, Hal Fishman, whose real-life hair is almost exactly like The Simpsons character, Kent Brockman. So let's see, the video wouldn't play. Let's see if this will come up. Oh, there it is. Thank goodness. So there you have Jerry Dunphy on the left. And really, look at Jerry's hair and look at Kent Brockman's hair. That's a pretty good copy right there. Maybe even the eyebrows as well. Hal Fishman is on the right from Channel 5. And you got to figure that some of this was inspiration for the Simpsons writers and animators. So Kent Shockman is widely recognized as part of the amalgamation that inspired the pompous news anchor character, along with a couple of other legendary Los Angeles anchors. But enough for that. I thought that was a fun thing to take a look at. Let's go back to October 1, the earthquake. It was a damaging earthquake. People died. $358 million in damage or something like that. And the city was on the edge October 1st when it happened. And then you saw the aftershock with Kent Shocknick live on the air. And there were much smaller aftershocks. And people were sleeping with one eye open, waiting for when the next aftershock was going to come on. I was on the radio 3 days later, October 4th, up on the 11th floor of KIIS-FM on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. We were just 2 blocks east of Vine Street, the famous Sunset and Vine, Hollywood and Vine, and that was our building. I was doing overnights because of an FCC ruling. I was working on the AM full time, and a ruling came down from the FCC that said major market radio stations do have the ability now to simulcast their FM signal on the AM. Up until then, for major markets, they had to keep separate staffs. And it was pretty weird anyhow. We had a complete separate staff on the AM, complete separate staff on the FM, which was the number one station in Los Angeles. The AM was the number 753rd station in Los Angeles. But the way they had it is they would just Xerox the music sheet, what we're playing, the commercials. Everything was almost exactly the same. But of course, it might be about 30 seconds off, a minute off, 3 minutes off. But the lineup of what was happening on the air was an exact copy of what was happening on the FM. So FCC rules, major market stations, you don't have to do that anymore. Boom. The entire AM staff is let go, including me. And so Jerry DeFrancesco, who was the program director of KIIS-FM at the time, said it felt bad, obviously, and I guess he liked me. And he said, Joe, I have one shift that I can give you on the FM. And I said, Jerry, I'm up for anything, He said, it's Sunday morning. And I thought, so I could do Sunday mornings. That'll be fun. 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. And it's like, oh, man. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Who knows? It could lead to something, I always keep a positive attitude. You never know when something's going to lead to something else. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. And it was rough. It was only one day a week. So now I went from making, at the time, I think I was making $65,000 a year at KIIS. Now I was making $175 a week. Okay. So it's 3:59 a.m. and a magnitude 5.3 aftershock rolled through Los Angeles. And I know exactly what it felt like. The song that I was playing at the time was by Madonna. It was called Causing a Commotion. And we were coming up to the top of the hour of 4 a.m. I had just turned on my microphone, and let's see if we could take a look at it. I got the move, baby. You got the motion. If we got together, we'd be causing a commotion. Causing a commotion.
Well, looks like it's happening again. Okay, it's 4 o'clock at KIIS-FM and AM Los Angeles. And we're still on the air, and we're going through another, seems to be aftershock. And it's still rumbling through at the moment. Ooh, it is kind of different being up on the 11th floor when it happens. My gosh. We're still kind of shaking a little bit here, too. Okay, it's KIIS-FM and AM Los Angeles. 4 o'clock. This is Joe Cipriano. Yeah, okay, we'll see if we can get some numbers on that for you in just a little bit. Keep it right here. KIIS-FM Los Angeles. More variety. 102.7 KIIS FM. Yeah. Okay. The time was 4 o'clock at right on the nose. We don't have any information on it yet, but in case you were rocked out of bed, yeah, there was another earthquake here in Southern California. And gave us a pretty good little ride here at KIIS FM. Knocked the microphone over. I got a call from Burbank. As a matter of fact, let me just take a couple of quick calls here. Hi, KIIS FM.
Yes, was there just another earthquake?
Yeah, there was. Where are you calling from?
Pasadena.
And how was it there?
Well, I was sound asleep, and it woke me up.
It did?
Uh-huh.
Now, did it knock anything over at your house?
Just a picture off the wall.
Mm-hmm. But nowhere as big as the one we just had on Thursday?
No.
Okay. All right. We're kind of guessing that it's probably, I don't know if you can call it an aftershock or not, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to the wire machines and find out if they call that an aftershock or if it was another earthquake in Southern California. Now, Smokey Robinson and One Heartbeat. KIIS FM. More variety. 102.7 KIIS FM. Yeah. It was a little bit more than just a heartbeat, I think, that we felt about 11 minutes ago. We had a little bit of I guess we're referring to it as an aftershock here, and the phones are going nuts at KIIS FM, so it was widespread and felt throughout the Southland. I've had calls from the Palisades, My wife just called in. Also, we've had calls from Burbank, the South Bay, all over the place. So you can be sure that it was felt here at KIIS. It was just a gentle rocking motion, and the microphone fell over. And I look back here at our rack that we have a 500-pound rack behind us that fell over in the last quake, and I just wanted to make sure it certainly wouldn't fall over this time.
Yeah, that rack actually fell over. So that happened, right? And like, I'm all alone at the radio station. There was nobody there, practically nobody in the building. I doubt there might have been a security guard, down in the lobby. And a lot good they did, because while I was on the air at KIIS doing nights at different shifts, I had my car broken into twice with the radio removed, windows broken, while the guard was sitting looking. I parked the car right in front of the guard so that, but yeah. So there you go. And true story about the microphone. That microphone, it was on a spring tension arm connected to the desktop, and it fell right over onto the control board while I was talking. I went down like this at KIIS-FM, Now, let me tell you what that felt like for me. I had seen Kent Shocknick dive under the desk in that breathless move, and I said to myself, all right, keep it together, Cipriano. It's the 11th floor. Yes, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. The city is asleep. But suddenly, as that entire building started to shake and actually sway, when you're on the ground floor, that's one thing. But when you're on the 11th floor, it's kind of magnified. And you're sitting there, headphones on, microphone in front of you. And then, of course, being alone. But not really alone, because suddenly everybody's awake. I mean, pretty much everybody was shaken out of bed. So my thought is, okay, I'm alone. It's KIIS-FM. It's the number one radio station in Los Angeles. It's 4 a.m. How many people are really listening? But now there's going to be a lot of people listening. So keep talking, stay calm, because everybody is reaching over and turning on their radio. And that's interesting to talk about. Let's talk about that. The phone call in the clip that I played, that nice woman calling in from Pasadena. She said she was sound asleep and the earthquake woke her up. And here's the thing. It's 1987. What was the first thing that she did? She picked up the phone and called KIIS-FM. She didn't call the police. She didn't call 911, didn't call a neighbor. She called her favorite radio station, because that's what radio was back in 1987. It was the first place people turned to when something happened. There's no internet. There's no social media. There's no push notifications that come in. And all there is a radio station, a voice on the air, and someone saying, like me, man, that was a ride, wasn't it? And connecting with these people and saying, well, we're still on the air, and I'm going to get you all the info that I can. I'm going to run down to the wires, find out, what I can impart. We had power. We had no problems whatsoever. Going to be there for you. And you're not alone. And we're going to get through this together. And that made me feel like I wasn't alone, And it's really interesting. It's not like that with radio anymore, because we have instant connectivity with anybody, and friends and neighbors, family that you can text instantly, or go on any one of the social media platforms to talk to anybody anywhere. So it really is such a difference from the way it was in 1987. And now here we are 40 years later, and listening to that once again, because, some moments like that just don't get old. And I'm going to look at the comments here to see if anybody, were you around in 1987? I know my buddy Phil was. but I have a feeling a lot of you guys were a little too young. Now people would grab their phone, exactly, to text, right? And this is interesting. We had a very different relationship with the radio. The people on the radio meant something. They were companions. They were people that you could trust, maybe. They were funny. And let's see what this one says. Great phoner, Joe. That was what radio was in the era. I played a lot of the same music from Carts in 1987 on an AC station. Oh, here we go. How old were you, David? He was 4. He was 4. All right. So we're going to leave 1987. And thanks for sitting through that and experiencing that with me. By the way, that little piece of tape, I wasn't, when you're on the air, it's called air checking yourself. You can air check yourself. You put a cassette at that time in a cassette recorder, and it was hooked up to the microphone. Every time you would turn the microphone on, the cassette would start recording. And when you turn the mic off, the cassette would stop recording. So it would give you a log, an air check of only you, but it's you on the air with the music, with the commercials, with the jingles and all of that. And that's something that you would review yourself to try to make yourself better, and also review with the program director of the station, and he or she would have comments for you. So now we're going to jump forward to the year 1997, 10 years later. This is coming from the part of the system where the Jerry Dunphy video was supposed to play. So let's see if it plays.
The ball is descending. Listen to the roar of that crowd.
This is what was happening in the beginning of 1997 as we set the stage.
15 seconds, it'll be 1997. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy 1997 on time.
Wow. How about that, huh? Dick Clark. Whoa. And now, of course, Ryan Seacrest, who does New Year's Rocking Eve. So 1997 ended up being an amazing year. Tiger Woods was going to win the Masters at 21 years of age and change golf forever. The world was about to meet Dolly the sheep, the very first cloned mammal. The movie Titanic was coming to theaters and would become the highest grossing film in history. Mike Tyson would bite off part of Evander Holyfield's ear in one of the most bizarre moments in boxing history. The Harry Potter series would be published for the first time. And in September of 1997, a little company called Apple Computers, was about to run an ad that would save itself from bankruptcy and eventually, you could say, change the world. While I was in the booth at Fox during that year, 1997, I was also working at CBS that year, bouncing back and forth from the Fox lot where Phil was to the CBS Television City location at Fairfax and Beverly, legendary location. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago with Michael Damian from The Young and the Restless. That's where they shoot Young and the Restless. But while I was doing that, something remarkable was happening in Cupertino, California. What was happening was Apple Computers was dying. And I mean that literally. The company was losing money. Its products lacked any kind of direction. Microsoft and IBM were eating their lunch. And let's go take a look at a news report about this.
Years ago, Apple was synonymous with the home computer. But these days,
The company is hurting, laying off workers, and scaling back production.
In fact, just today, Apple took out full-page ads in newspapers across the country explaining its problems and asking customers to be patient. What does all this mean for someone in the market for a computer? In tonight's Focus 5 report, a look at Apple's problems and why some are saying don't count them out just yet. Financial difficulties, layoffs, buyout rumors. It's enough to make the most loyal of computer users a little skittish. Once a mighty giant in the industry, now Apple computers are given little shelf space in most stores.
I've always grown up around IBM compatibles. My dad had one. And IBM, I was familiar with it. I knew how to move it. You could expand on it a little bit more.
Many see buying Apple's Macintosh as too limiting. In a sea of software at most stores, only a few titles will run on a Mac. That's one of the reasons IBM and all of its clones own 90% of the market. But the other 10% are extremely loyal, almost religious about their Macs.
That part of the Mac is what has kept the product alive. I mean, Mac users, when they buy a machine, they bought it 10 years ago, they keep upgrading, they're very loyal.
Macintosh Systems and Peripherals of Minneapolis sells Apple computers, but owner Michael Bartis admits the company has made mistakes.
The decision that they made that was wrong, I believe, was that they came out with too many computers, and they made it really tricky on the consumers to figure out what computer they need to buy.
Apple seems to agree with Bartis. In a press release issued last week, the company said it plans to, quote, simplify our product portfolio to emphasize the models it describes as best of class.
Companies make bad decisions, and they're going to weed through their product line, and what I think you'll see is a smaller product line. They'll probably go down from 30 machines to 5 or 6.
Even with Apple scaling back, the shelves are packed with lots of different styles and price ranges. Figuring out which one's right for you can be confusing. Bartis says consumers should look for the computer that fits them best. He's confident Macintosh is still a good choice.
There's 20 million installed base Mac users out there. I don't see it just going away overnight.
Here's one more suggestion. If you are concerned about the future of Apple but still prefer its Macintosh computer, there's a safety net. You can buy a Mac that will run IBM software.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Wow. Apple had lost so much ground that Dell's CEO publicly said the company should just shut down and return the money to the shareholders. And then what happened? Steve Jobs came back. He had been ousted. He had been gone. I was shocked to learn this, that he was actually gone from Apple for 12 years, forced out by the company that he founded, right? And so thank goodness they were able to, or he was able, and they were smart enough to bring him back, right? And from what I've heard, it wasn't like he was going to come back and right away they were going to start doing new products. In 1997, he returned as the interim CEO of the company that many believed was finished, right? And now here's where it gets kind of interesting. Jobs' first major move wasn't a new product, like I said. It was advertising. He called in the ad agency TBWA Chiat Day, and what they presented him wasn't about computers at all. It was a 60-second film, really, black and white images, Albert Einstein, Bob Dylan, Martin Luther King, Amelia Earhart, John Lennon, Muhammad Ali, Hitchcock, Jim Henson, Gandhi, Pablo Picasso, Thomas Edison, Richard Branson, and a voice saying something that had never been said in a television commercial before. And imagine being at Apple then in 1997. There were no iPhones, right? That they hadn't been invented. No iPads, no Apple Watch, no Apple stores. Just a company hoping people hadn't forgotten who they were. And this was the ad that Steve Jobs gave the green light for.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Is that when it was presented to him, Steve Jobs hated it. When the agency first presented the copy to Jobs, he called it, quoting him, crap, and crap was not the word that he used, and advertising agency stuff. He didn't like it. Two writers eventually reworked it, and Jobs came around, but he almost killed the greatest ad in the history of Apple before it ever aired, because secret number 2, Robin Williams was the first choice to narrate it. The copywriter who wrote those words imagined Robin Williams saying them. But Robin Williams had a very strict policy that he would not do advertising ever. So instead, after, a lot of conversation, they thought of Richard Dreyfuss. And I have to say, it's a great read. Secret number 3, Steve Jobs also recorded his own version of that spot. He recorded the entire narration himself. That was actually the version that they planned for release. The ad agency said, okay, we're going to do this. But Jobs pulled it at the last minute. He said, listen, guys, if this commercial uses my voice, people are going to focus on me instead of the message. So instead, they decided in the last few days that they were going to run the Richard Dreyfuss one. And when the Jobs version eventually leaked, most thought the Dreyfuss version was better. But I have to tell you, I'm going to play it for you. I think Steve Jobs sounds pretty darn good on this. So let's take a look.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I think that was a very nice job. And I see that I was muted again. Can I do one of these without being muted at some point through it? Am I talking? Yes, I'm no longer muted. But let's see here. He sounds like Daniel Stern. Interesting. Yeah. And here's someone with a glowing review. That wasn't all that bad. And a good read for Jobs, but he's a butt too plain. Oh, a bit too plain. Okay, I got it. All right, listen. You guys all knew that was coming. I'm sure that we were going to play the Think Different ad. Now, we really can't talk about that ad, Apple's pivotal 1997 commercial, without also looking back a little bit further at another one of their monumental commercials, 1984. What's interesting is that neither commercial was really about selling computers. The 1984 commercial challenged conformity. It said Apple wasn't going to be like everyone else. 13 years later, Think Different wasn't selling computers either. It was celebrating the people who refused to think like everyone else. Different commercials, same philosophy. Apple wasn't asking you to go out and buy a computer. They were inviting you to see the world differently. And that's exactly what Steve Jobs was trying to do with the company himself. And to really understand what Think Different was saying, let's go back 13 years before to the commercial that started it all. And that commercial was the Apple 1984. And I thought I had it here to play for you, and I do not see it in the list. But I will look for it, and while something else is playing, and then hopefully we'll be able to enjoy it. You guys all know the 1984 commercial. It changed the way people looked at Apple. Think Different reminded them why they loved Apple in the first place. So now let's go back to 1997. Okay. Thinking Different was something that resonated with my own career. In actually 1989, when I was hired by Fox, they were thinking different. And we've talked about that in the past. They were thinking different about a lot of things, okay? They wanted the programming to be completely different from the big three networks. They wanted the marketing to be different than the big three networks. And they heard me. They heard me on that radio station that I sat through a 5.3 earthquake. See, that was 87. 2 years later, they heard me on the air. Fox had been on and said, that's a voice that might be able to work. So I have to thank them for thinking differently. Because voices back then for network TV were rich and beautiful and deep. And I really didn't have that kind of voice. In fact, I got fired at a radio station because they didn't like my voice. And radio station was KKHR in Los Angeles. And I had been hired there. And I was doing middays, 9 a.m. to noon. What an awesome shift. You barely even knew you work. You work 3 hours on the day. So I was hired. I was using a different name. I was using the name Dave Donovan. And this was because I had started doing voiceovers. And I was I've played a few movie trailers that I've done, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Porky's and Bachelor Party, Tom Cruise's All the Right Moves. So I was starting to get booked on these, but certainly not enough to make a living. And I needed to continue in radio, to make a living. So I was on the air as Dave Donovan, and everybody was looking at this radio station because New York City, this was CBS. They had CBS-FM, which was very successful. And now they put this new top 40 format in Los Angeles on their owned and operated radio station, and all eyes were on this thing, and it had to succeed. There was an executive at BlackRock back in New York who hated my voice. He said my voice was too high, it was too squeaky. The program director, Ed Scarborough, who hired me, fought for me, and thank you, Ed, for doing that. But the ratings, we were up and down. We were up against KIIS-FM, who had just come on with Rick Dees in the morning, and they had like a 10 share, which is outrageous in Los Angeles. And we had pretty good ratings, and we were big with teens, but it just wasn't the same. And finally, Ed had to give in and succumb to the wishes of the executive. I'm going to play a little bit of me on the air at KKHR, and my crappy voice that the CBS executive said was awful.
Dave Donovan on KKHR.
From 9 to noon, master of the audio mix, Dave Donovan takes over the controls.
Hey, hi! It's 10:02. This is Dave Donovan working a 30-minute free ride on the flamethrower.
I was in high school and called a disc jockey, my favorite disc jockey on this radio station in Connecticut, which is a very small radio station, a little 1,000-watt AM radio station, and told him I was interested in radio, and he let me come down and visit. And then eventually, he was the music director of the station, and he would let me come down on the weekends, on Saturdays, and help him file records and things like that. And then while he was on the air Saturday, he would let me go in the production room and do a make-believe radio show.
For some reason, it seems to me you have this kind of appeal to women.
I think that the reason for that is middays traditionally has a higher listenership of women, just because, I mean, well, the old ideal was that women were home working, they were housewives. Well, now that's not true anymore. They work themselves, and we have a lot of people who listen to us at work.
Yeah, LA's Hit Radio 93, KKHR.
Hi, Dave.
Hi. 9:05, Dave Donovan with a 30-minute free ride, and your chance to win a free ride is coming up very soon. Stay with me. Huey Lewis, KKHR.
I like to do a lot of stuff with telephone bits, and people are funny. I mean, they do some great stuff. You can just play along with them. It's kind of like just doing comedy improv.
Dave Donovan on KKHR.
Hey, KKHR.
Hi.
Hey, what's happening?
We're going to the beach.
Which one?
Cresses.
Oh, that's the hot one.
How do you know?
All the girls go there because all the best guys are there.
Yeah. Are you going to go on the Crescent one of these days?
I'd love to. They won't let me in, though.
Why?
Well, they only let in the best guy. Yeah. Playing on your sympathy now. Teddy Pendergrass at Hit Radio.
I'll hold you and touch you.
I love doing those phone bits. They were awesome. I would, while I was on the air, those 3 hours, I would just take phone calls, while the songs were playing, and reel-to-reel tape. We had reel-to-reel machines there. I would record every single call. And, you would, it was hit or miss, probably about 15% of the calls would be something that you could really use on the air, maybe a little bit of heavy editing and things like that, which you would do live. The song's playing, you're editing, and you're using the grease pencil and the razor blade to cut it. And the song's ending, and you go, and you come back on, you do the next song, then you go back to editing. And, that's how it worked. And it made the radio show go by very quickly. So that's what I sounded like back then. Yeah, I didn't have a big, deep voice. Okay. And Joe, you're wearing Gilligan's shirt. Yes. Hit the vocal, will ya? Oh, my goodness. And what else we got here? We got Troy Rudder stopped by to say, hey, Joe. Hey, Troy, how are you? So the program director, after being battered about, firing the midday guy, he thought, okay, maybe I'll give the executive this one, and I can keep doing the other things we need to do to make this radio station successful. So we lose one guy, and I like him, but it's for the betterment of the whole thing. So that's the way that all worked. So going back to Apple in 1997, and I see we're coming up to the top of the hour, and to that ad, Think Differently. When it launched, Apple had no significant new products, nothing to sell. They just had this ad. And the ad immediately started turning things around. The iMac followed in 1998. The iPod came out in 2001. iTunes in 2001. The iPhone came out in 2007, I think, from a company on the verge of bankruptcy in 1997 to the most valuable company in the history of the world, okay? And it all started with that 60 seconds, the black and white images, and the voice saying, here's to the crazy ones. Remember where you were when you first saw that ad? And do you think Apple lives up to that message today? You can tell me in the comments here and we can talk about it. So 2 stories tonight. A broadcaster on the 11th floor of a radio station at 4 o'clock in the morning when the earth started moving, and a company on the verge of collapse that came back to life with just 60 seconds of black and white television. Both happened in the decade that we love, as we always flash back to the 90s here on Thursday night. And both of them remind us that the moments that change everything usually arrive without warning. And next week, we're going to be coming back with more stories from inside the golden era of American television. You know, history rarely tells you it's happening while you're living it. You only really recognize it when you rewind. And that's what we'll do again next Thursday night. Thanks so much for being here. I want you to be kind and rewind. We'll see you next week.